Okay, we've got to the end of the first day of questioning of the undercover police officer Mark Jenner, who infiltrated the Colin Roach Centre, numerous left-wing and anti-fascist groups between 1995 and 2000. He's been questioned quite extensively over the last day. But I mean, what really stands out for me is one of his comments just before we finished, where he was asked his opinion of the work of Graham Smith in exposing corrupt police. And he says that in his opinion, the police could do no wrong.
Yeah, no, it was fascinating, wasn't it? When he kind of finally let his guard down. He'd been very guarded the whole day. Lots of not exactly challenging questioning, but questions clearly intended to sort of elicit responses that he didn't want to give. And then right at the end, he said, police, in my opinion, police can do no wrong, but I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, except that he just said it at a public inquiry under oath with the camera on him. Genius.
After a whole day, which was all about whether or not the police could do any wrong.
Yeah.
Or rather, all the wrong the police had done.
Yeah. Well, he so set his stall out to demonize HCDA's work and the left as almost like as a terrorist group and set them up to be anti-police when in terms of HCDA they never took the stance to be anti-police. The police did a job themselves through what they did, and that was it.
Yeah, no, we were taking through a whole bunch of different things, campaigns and different projects. Would this be considered anti-police? Oh, yeah, that would be anti-police because they're complaining about the police killing someone.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just to introduce us, Tony and I'm Russell Miller. This is Tony Price. We were both involved with HCDA and to less extent the Colin Roach Centre, although we helped set it up. And yeah, the whole problem with this inquiry is it's kind of looking at things the wrong way around. I mean, you're talking about Ibrahim Say, who was killed when police officers were standing on him. He was prostrate on the floor and they sprayed CS gas in his face and he died. The Brian Douglas campaign, who was killed by a police officer hitting him on the head with a truncheon. The Trevor Monaville campaign. I mean, Trevor Monaville was murdered by someone else, but had previously been savagely attacked by the police. And the Malcolm Kennedy campaign, and Malcolm Kennedy was convicted of a murder which was almost certainly done by the police. And so what we're doing is we're looking at these really fantastic, I mean, also the Stephen Lawrence campaign. We're looking at these fantastic, important campaigns, but from the prism of a bizarre police interpretation of those events. So, it's difficult because you're just hearing this police officer effectively excuse all sorts of appalling conduct, but without being direct about it. So he's not saying, oh, the police didn't do this or the police didn't do that. He's saying, oh, the left's trying to exploit it, or, this cashing in.
Yeah. Well said, Russell. And to add to that, it almost feels as though it's the left that's on trial, and he's giving evidence. In that respect, not he's on trial, and his conduct has been appalling. He sits there very arrogantly, not being accountable for his behavior.
There's a lot of, there's so much of the detail of those campaigns that he claims just to be completely ignorant about. He claimed not to know that Imran Khan was Stephen Lawrence family campaign's solicitor. He said, he put that in the report because to remind him of who he was. Just not credible, really.
No. I mean, an awful lot of what he said wasn't credible. I mean, he was clearly, as you say, he was confident. He was arrogant. He was unshaking. I mean, there is no racism apparently in Special Branch. Yeah, a few uniformed officers, maybe, but no, not in Special Branch. I never heard a racist comment the whole time he was in Special Branch. I mean, it's just utterly ludicrous. And I mean, is it David Barr, Daniel Barr?
David Barr,
yeah, tried, when questioning him, tried to elucidate to what extent he has any awareness of racism. And clearly there's a whole thread through both Jenner's reporting personally and the subsequent reports which are created within Special Branch, which are just absolutely rife with racism. Yeah, they don't use, overtly racist terms, but as Barr, got to, there's talk about venomous black
Yes.
youth, on threatening black youth, and excitable, and all of this being about actually people who are very angry about someone being killed. It's not just, there's no reason for this emotion.
Yeah, and it's almost part of the identification as black youth as inherently problematic. And as soon as they, take the street or they might be gathering, it's all so it's all part of a racist rhetoric and narrative that's been long-standing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so blatant, some of the comments he made, about the idea that the presence of black youth was inherently going to mean that there might be trouble. And so when he was put to him, isn't this racist stereotyping? Oh, not at all. The only reason racists come up is because the victim was black.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of obviously him desperate to try and hide the racism, and his absolute lack of understanding of all the issues. And I mean, it's quite painful for everyone, I think, seeing this stuff, because certainly those of us who were directly involved. I mean, we knew Malcolm Kennedy. I didn't know the Douglas family. I don't know if you did. I was loosely associated with the Ibrahim Say campaign, and these were appalling cases. Really, really tragic cases, where there should have been some accountability. I mean, David Barr mentioned at the end that the verdict in the inquest on Ibrahim Say was that he was unlawfully killed, and then to portray New Monitoring Project, which was very grassroots, long-standing campaign for the communities which were effectively under attack, to portray them as exploiting these situations, and in reference to, they're going to exploit the fact that CS gas was used, and then trying to suggest that the Colin Roach Centre through Mark Metcalf was somehow jealous of New Monitoring Project because they were getting the publicity. It's all such nonsense. Basically everyone involved is concerned about justice. That's the issue.
Exactly, and it just shows his detachment. Because whatever, and for whatever reason he was deployed, there's no humanity in him, because what we've come to recognize over the years, in a sense, is even the amount of trauma in us all as a result of I didn't know. It's okay. I didn't know I'd be emotional about it. But as a result of the things that people have gone through, you cannot but feel, and that's part of the reason we're so motivated to do the things we do. We don't just get up on a morning, and say, all right, we're just going to attack the police. That's why I'm also resentful of his stance in that respect. Just to say that HCDA was a dynamic group of many different people, including people who had their cases, people who various persuasions who drove it along the lines of people being involved and to expose what was going on,
and the need was vast. Because in a way we know the names of some of the people who died, but you don't know the names of the people who were beaten up, or the people who were fitted up, and I can't remember what HCA's caseload was, but it was in the hundreds, and that's just Hackney. You start talking around the whole of the Metropolitan Police, it's huge. And so what we've got,
I think it was 98 cases and 90 of them were successful.
That was the Colin Roach Centre post HCDA, and I think there were at least 130 HCDA cases. Right. So there was a lot more. And I think I do think his comment right at the end, I think he was just beginning to relax, because he had to sort of hold it all together during the day, and the fact that, in my view, police can do no wrong, it exposes the exact truth, which is that the police position, whether it's the STS or the senior management or the undercover officers, is that we do no wrong. It doesn't matter if we kill someone or we fail to investigate the murder of someone, or we don't take racism seriously, or whatever. Nothing we do is wrong. If we sleep with women while we're undercover, that's just part of the job. The fact that they're deceived, the fact that it's, and that is absolutely crucial to understanding what's gone on.
Yeah, absolutely, because he rubber stamped that by saying, basically everybody's got a stance against the police. It's it's not he just couldn't admit that there's wrong done, that there's corruption, that there is crime, which HCDA always try to underline. A crime is a crime is a crime is a crime. We're not standing against police. You've committed a crime. That's it. Same as everybody else. You should be held to account. And he refuses that. It's just, oh no, well, yeah, people are just generally anti the police.
And so then there has to be a whole kind of construct of lies to justify not just the deployment. And it was quite interesting. Barr managed to draw out that there's things that are said in the reports and that those reports appear to be exaggerated or untrue. And then you get the annual report from the SDS, which is even worse, which it further exaggerates. And so, they're not only are they inflating their own importance, but most significantly what they're doing is they're inflating the significance of their lies, that this is anarchist, this is leftists, this is nothing to do with actual police wrongdoing. And so, you can imagine a different world, couldn't you, in which an undercover officer is actually, or you don't need to be undercover, but an officer is trying to get to the bottom of what really happened. What really happened with Ibrahim Say, what really happened with Brian Douglas. Well, let's try and find out so that there can be justice. And then the annual report can say, yes, we have a problem with officers using too much violence, we have a problem with officers who are racist, we have problems with officers who are sexist, who are misogynist. And you wouldn't be in the situation you are now, which is with the Met, just endemic with misogyny and rapists, murderers, child abusers. The Met is in an enormous mess, and it's because they will not listen to criticism.
Yeah, I mean that comes across very strongly, doesn't it? One of the other areas that was looked at and there was questions asked about was his infiltration of Irish Republican support groups. There was I think David Barr absolutely tore to shreds any idea that he'd done anything useful in that area. I mean, he just basically went through going like, did you at any point, at any time, come into contact with anybody who ever was a member of a prescribed organization, give any material support to a prescribed just literally anything. And essentially, Mark Jenner had to say that the closest he ever got was having some conversations with some people who might have been sympathetic to the aims of the IRA at some point.
Yeah, and chief among them being someone who was a speaker at a meeting who'd come over for the purpose of speaking. So it's not exactly he'd uncovered this person. It was ludicrous.
And it was utterly ludicrous. And we saw the reports that claimed that he was mixing freely with members of the IRA, which just such a ridiculous exaggeration. And if this is the standard of police intelligence reports, we know already that this is the standard of these police intelligence reports, but it just shows the complete disconnect from any reality from what they're actually doing.
It does, but I think we also have to understand that it does have a function. It's not just that it's totally inaccurate. It's totally inaccurate for a reason, and the reason being that part of this is an intelligence gathering operation, but a large part of it is a smear development program. It's a way in which they access communities, they access people in order to smear organizations that are critical of the police, and in order to create ammunition within the police, within special branch, and for senior officers to be able to answer things such as classically the Stephen Lawrence campaign, which went so high in terms of the Home Secretary and etc. And so the Met are desperate for a bit of material to say, well, yeah, we did fail to investigate this racist murder, and we are a bit racist, but actually it's all these agitators that are causing all the problem. So there's a logic behind all of this, and I think just one point on the kind of the issue around the way the inquiry is structured. There's this way out constantly in which the deployed officers, the undercovers like Mark Jenner, can say, oh, well, I didn't actually write the report, because they're questioned about these reports, very few of which we've actually seen, and there's a whole issue about which ones are missing. But when he is questioned about the reports, if there's a word in there that he's not comfortable with, he can just say, well, I didn't write it. And it's but it came from your reporting. Now, the key question is, well, where is his reporting? Why aren't we seeing the first-hand reports?
You've seen none of the raw reporting at all.
No, and the thing is he wouldn't have a way out there. And of course, if the kind of, if you like, sanitized or formalized reports are this bad, God knows what the raw reporting is really like. What's the language in the raw reporting, and what does it actually say? And so there's a structural problem in the inquiry that a witness can just dodge by saying I didn't actually write that, and a failure to kind of get to the source material. But also, I mean, like, you know, on several occasions, there's clearly masses of missing evidence. And what the clearest one, I think, was on the Malcolm Kennedy case. So Malcolm Kennedy was fitted up for the murder of Patrick Quinn. Patrick Quinn was killed in Hammersmith Police Station. And Malcolm Kennedy was convicted of murder, released when his appeal at the Court of Appeal was granted, so his conviction was quashed. He was then released on bail pending a retrial, at which point he attended the Colin Roach Centre and talked about his case, at which point Mark Jenner met him. And there's a whole issue of how much Mark Jenner talked to Malcolm Kennedy, how much he groomed him, how much he kind of found out about his case, which obviously would have been highly prejudicial to Malcolm, but very useful for the Met. So the likelihood that Mark Jenner didn't groom him is, you know, really unlikely. But there's a question: is whatever all of that, Malcolm Kennedy was at the Colin Roach Centre. Mark Jenner was reporting on the Colin Roach Centre. So Mark Jenner reported on Malcolm Kennedy. He can't avoid that. He actually admitted he did do that, but we haven't got those reports. So, you know, clearly what's being filtered to the inquiry is the stuff that they think is less damaging. And
yeah, I mean, there has been a real change in how the inquiry has been sourcing their reports, because up until fairly recently, the reports were actually coming from the security services, because the security services were passing on the reports that they'd got from the SDS to the inquiry, because the SDS go, oh, we haven't got them, we haven't got anything. And so now we're getting to the point where the security services weren't getting all the reports as a matter of standard, and I think about 95. And suddenly there's a huge drop in the number of reports, because it's the SDS, it's the Metropolitan Police themselves who are providing these reports, and they are cherry picking them clearly.
Yeah, obviously. And, you know, there's a whole issue about what's really the purpose of the reports. I mean, you know, we've also got the trade union element, and then the failure really to look into that. There's Mark Metcalf was involved in the trade union support unit at Colin Roach Centre. There was a very significant kind of rank and file trade union element at the Colin Roach Centre. And there was these reports, a couple of reports we saw today relating to a strike in Southwark Council, and a whole series of trade unions named in that report. And as was put to him by Barr, you know, well, why are you naming all these people? Why are you reporting this? This is run-of-the-mill trade union activity. And clearly that material, I mean, again, he has a way out. He's like, well, I just report stuff. I'm just hoovering it up. What happens to it is nothing to do with me. And clearly something happens to that. And does it go to the Economic League? Does it go to, well, I can't remember the name of the successor.
Consulting
Association. You know, clearly there's a link between special branch and corporate spying and blacklisting, which the inquiry is not interested in, because it's not calling Dave Smith, you know, and, you know, that's a shocking example of yet another element where lawful activity is being surveilled and then used in ways in which we don't fully understand. So although Mark Jenner has basically stuck to the script and not really said very much, nevertheless, there's an awful lot that you can draw from it. And it's a very telling sign of the way in which the police politically intervene in order to protect themselves and to preserve the status quo. And I mean, that's what we know this is really about.
Well, this is it. And he's not being slow to throw people under the bus.
Repeatedly.
So, well, this is it, as he has with Mark Metcalf, but also shockingly, but you can see why he's going to do it. There's been no remorse in him with respect to Alison, and he so deliberately and calculatedly throws her under the bus. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to emerge into so far as when he's questioned about his involvement with Alison.
Yeah, I mean that's that. I mean, theoretically, that should come up tomorrow, I guess, or the day after. I mean, that thing about the way that he's like constantly saying, "Oh well, I just reported what Mark Metcalf told me." So if it's wrong, or if there's a problematic wording, if he doesn't blame the person who typed it up, oh, that must have been what Mark Metcalf said.
Exactly. Someone's always to blame, but it's never Mark Jenner.
It's never Mark Jenner. Yeah,
and this is what we've had with all the undercover officers. Yeah. I mean, a remarkable lack of culpability in any point at any time. And I mean, you know, I think there's also a question about whether really all of this came from Mark. I mean, you know, Mark Metcalf, you know, you could imagine him chatting in a pub, and I don't doubt that some of this stuff came from Mark, but there's a lot of material there, and a lot we haven't seen, and a lot of it's in detail. And it's like, well, if you had a chat in the pub, and then you're producing these really detailed reports, it doesn't quite add up. You rather suspect there are other sources there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much that he's like saying. Oh, nothing. Like, for example, he said he only ever met Graham Smith once. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we've been seeing like reports all day on like specifically about Graham Smith specifically. I mean, he's mentioned in reports where he's at meetings, but also like just ones just about him doing his PhD, about him setting up the Defendants Information Service.
Yeah, and that all comes through Mark. No, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And this is the thing. He's clearly comfortable hiding behind Mark. He clearly sees that he's his best defense. Oh, Mark told me. But no, I mean, he's clearly not telling the truth about an awful lot that went on.
Yeah, and I haven't got to the nub of it yet, but it's just something about as well as the demonization of the left and the organizations resisting what's going on. He seems to have isolated Graham almost as though he's just a figure on his own, and not in connection with anybody, any of the supporters of the organization, the people involved in the organization. And people have to remember that many people who had cases went on to be quite active in various ways, supporting cases and one thing and another. So it's just not an isolated figure, not even just in terms of having set up HCDA, but in terms of the support and the activism.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a very clear contrast between the reality, which is the likes of you and I, and dozens of other people, many of whom had their own cases, coming to the Colin Roach Centre, coming to HCDA, regularly discussing their cases, working on legal cases, working on strategies for justice, supported by Graham Smith and various others, including some of the people who are in the public gallery. And that the reality of what's going on. And then Mark Metcalfe and his political activities, where he was looking more broadly. And then you've got Jenna's perspective. And Jenna's perspective is basically Mark was an ambitious political person who wasn't terribly successful and just hung around with thugs who wanted to beat up fascists. And that's pretty much, and wanted to exploit, opportunities. So there's a very, very simplistic, dishonest narrative coming from Jenna about the fact that all the Colin Roach Centre is a centre for dodgy politics, which is really violent people, and they needed to keep in order to keep their activists going, they had to go around beating people up because that's what the activists wanted to do. Even though there's no evidence anyone ever beat anyone up. I mean, the closest he got was suggesting that there was an attack on a pub at some point. But again, we've got no contemporaneous reports about that. And even his report about the incident doesn't actually say that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the wild thing, is that him and like at the stand today talking about the events that are in the reports, he paints a much more violent picture than what we see on paper. Like the idea that he wouldn't have exaggerated that at the time, it's just not credible.
Because I mean, and then we did actually get him to admit that the kind of the annual report was a huge exaggeration. He had to concede that I mean, I think the annual report said he'd found a rich stream of intelligence on anti-police activity, crime, and terrorism, and he had to concede on all of those counts that wasn't true. Yet, as you say, in his evidence, he's actually really emphasizing the idea that there's all these thugs around who are desperate to go around beating up fascists. And I mean, whatever you think about kind of violent confrontation of fascists, because obviously fascists are very dangerous, violent people, but he's clearly putting the emphasis that it's the left who wants to create the violence, it's the left who is seeking confrontation. And I mean, very, very overtly excusing anything coming from the right. Clearly there is a coincidence of interest and a coincidence of politics between Special Branch, the SDS, their belief that they can do no wrong, they're being all white and racist. I mean, maybe not all of them are racist. I don't know, because we don't know all of them. But what we do know is they're quite happy to attack families and victims who are suffering appalling injustice and to smear them rather than actually try and champion them getting access to justice.
Yeah, it's as though people don't have any legitimate or didn't have any legitimate concerns, whether it be about housing or or a whole lot of other things, because the Colin Roach Centre and HCDA dealt with other things as well.
Immigration, yeah, exactly. The Colin Roach Centre kind of drew on the kind of self-help model of HCDA, and then started, as you say, looking at other issues such as housing and immigration, and being very much a community-based support service for with no funding, just grassroots activity. And if you look at it through Mark Jenner's lens, it's just a few guys in a room, testosterone up, looking for action.
Yeah. I mean, his idea that you have to keep them fed. You got to keep giving them something to fight. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I've never met one of these people who desperately needs to beat someone up, and if you don't give them someone to beat up, they run away, or they go and find someone else who's going to give them someone to beat up. It's just totally not what was going on.
Exactly. It's just, although they're like brainless morons, there's nothing going on cerebrally, and then so they need some input and some sort of direction, like a cattle prod. Go over there and.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, there's been so much that he's been asked about, and that we've seen the reports of, that you just find yourself thinking, well, no, this is just bollocks.
Yeah. and it's sort of bollocks upon bollocks, if you like. It's like, on the one hand, the report says this, which is clearly not true, and then management take it to another level of nonsense. And it's utterly political. Everything is political. It's about managing the Met Police's reputation at a time when they're killing people. I mean, not quite weekly, but quite regularly. I mean, there are a number of other people who were killed by the police who haven't been mentioned. Shija Lipiti being one that kind of comes to mind, and I don't know if you can remember others, but and obviously not investigating racist murders such as Ricky Real or Stephen Lawrence, and these are massive issues, and yet none of the resources are deployed towards resolving those issues. None of the resources are deployed towards supporting the families. None of the resources are deployed towards structurally trying to address the problems. Right? There is very clearly, and even Barr got to it in the end, didn't he? There is an institutional position, and then Jenner admits it. The police can do no wrong. That's your institutional position.
And just to add to that as well, it frighteningly sort of dovetails with what's going on today, insofar as there's a demonization. People are just victims if there's no legitimate legitimate concerns. So that's warring with where we're going politically now.
Yeah, no, I think that's really key, because I think so much from a policing point of view, but also a societal point of view, was created by the way in which the SD acted, the way in which the Met Police acted, and that's kind of created this authoritarian culture we now have, and the rise of the far right. So much of it can be traced back to these days. It's your first time at the Undercover Police Inquiry today, Tony. I'm just interested what you make of the process.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. I'm glad Russell encouraged me to, come along. I'm really glad that I did, and it's good to be there to and offer some support to the whole process. And it's interesting because sitting in for my first time, it was hard to make it what was going on in terms of the question at first, because at first I thought, are you, going it quite easy with this guy, so it's just trying to understand how it works, and the questioning as well, because for example, there was something raised about us. Sorry, what's his name again?
David Barr.
Oh, sorry,
the barrister or
the barrister.
Yeah, David Barr. Yeah.
Where he said something about the far left, and I was hoping he doesn't give him any more ammunition, or any ammunition that he needs to.
Yeah, it's that thing about excusing the witness by giving them a kind of, kind of leading them really towards what the answer you might expect.
I mean, there is I think Barr's style. In the past, he has been he comes out with things like, "What on earth are you on about?" I remember he said to Bob Lambert, when Bob Lambert was giving evidence as an undercover officer, he'll be back to give evidence as a manager in a few months' time. But he said, "Oh, they can be very tempting, can't they? These young women?" And everybody was like, "But he said, I was he was trying to elicit that out of him." You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, again, he tried with Jenner. The whole the questioning started with, "Oh, did the issue of sex come up before you were deployed?" "Oh, well, drugs were inevitable." And I mean, effectively, he said sex was inevitable as well.
He did,
and it's like, well, there's no inevitability about anything. I mean, it's almost as if it's like he's saying sexual orgies are a prerequisite to and again, it's part of this smearing process where it's like, all these activists are drug taking, sex crazed lunatics who you have to dirty yourself with in order to get the intelligence. And it's a really, really disturbed and dishonest representation of what are very ordinary people doing extraordinary things, who are having the courage to come forward and say, no, I think this is wrong and I'm going to do something about it, whether because you've personally been affected or because you care enough.
Yes,
And to caricature that as a bunch of grungy people who you have to dirty yourself with and get involved in their sordid activities because otherwise you can't get access to. I mean, he repeatedly said, didn't it? Bar said, well, there are alternatives. You could untenable, couldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it just underlines that demonization, that a narrative, because also they're grungy people. It's people you want to invite into your house.
I was never going to live in a squat.
Exactly. So these they're not people. They're just some
dehumanizing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, he's going to be back again tomorrow. He's back again on Wednesday. He might be back again on Thursday as well. Are you going to come back for any more of the questioning?
To be honest with you, I would really like to, and I did, appreciate being able to come to attend. Russell's great encouragement. I actually changed my ticket, and I was umming and ahhing about it because I've had to almost like do a journey with it myself, with the whole thing myself, revisiting after so many years and what that entails. But given the chance, I would come back.
Is there anything you're looking forward to him being questioned about? I mean, we expect him to being asked about the relationship with Alison. That there's a few other topics. I mean, the supposed second trip to Ireland, which everybody said didn't happen, but his reports claim did.
Yeah, I mean, I think when they get onto the relationship with Alison, and then also because obviously his ex-wife has given evidence as well, I think that's the kind of place where he's most likely to be vulnerable, because he seems quite confident in hiding behind Mark Metcalf and sort of pretending somehow that he's this professional officer who's doing a professional job, and so professionalize the fact that you lied to a woman and we're in a relationship with her for 5 years while you're also married and you're lying to your wife. I mean, let's see how the professional officer kind of sustains that.
Yeah, and then there's something in that as well about that detachment, because I just in a sense wonder, well, who are you, when you go home at night, and does that professionalism allow you to detach your emotions and separate yourself from any ounce of humanity? You're just then a machine.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that always comes up. It's like, how on earth can these men behave in this way? I mean, it's a question we always find ourselves left with after we see the evidence of these undercover officers. How on earth could you get to that point? I don't have any answers for that.
No, well, I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll tell us.
Maybe. I'm not holding my breath. All right. Anything else either of you want to add?
No, thanks. But I really appreciate the job you've done. I've heard a lot, and thank you very much for also affording the opportunity. But speaking for myself, at least
Oh, cheers, Tony. Good of you. Thanks, Russ. Thanks, Tony. Thanks both for joining us. Thanks for watching. I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces this evening, sort of recapping everything from the day. I'm not sure what time that'll be, but it'll be on Twitter later on. And we'll be back again tomorrow for another day of questioning of Mark Jenner. Bye for now.
Well done, Tom.